Hey, City of Champions. This week we are back to a musical guest on the podcast. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Luke Ertman and Jeff Ramsey. Now, these two childhood friends are the leading members of a local band by the name of Fool's Tongue. The group recently released their second studio album, which is an alternative rock compilation with epic symphonic rock feel. Pretty cool stuff, and the setup on stage is pretty remarkable. The three of us got a chance to discuss the band's creation, the shifting climate of the music industry, and the challenges faced by almost all upstart bands nowadays. Luke and Jeff, along with their four other band members, Cassia, Eric, Josh, and Dave, are preparing for their CD release party this April the 28th at the Capitol Theatre in Fort Edmonton Park. You can check out their website at foolstongue.ca to hear their jams and to find a link for tickets for their show. Now I give you Fool's Tongue. I'm just going to hit record and we'll go live, and then we'll just jump right into it.
Sure.
As you know, this is pretty casual. So,
that's totally cool.
Jeff and Luke, I appreciate you guys joining me today.
Thanks so much.
I'm interested to know what's going on in your world of Fool's Tongue. First of all, where'd the name come from?
Oh, geez, that's old now. We used to be in a group called...
Well, the very first group is called Mannequin.
Yeah, and then it went to Divine Madness.
Yeah.
And then we were like, that's not cool.
Well, it could be. It depends,
could be.
depends how you own it, right?
Yeah.
High school.
So, okay, let's get back into your guys' backstory then. You guys know each other from high school, obviously?
Oh, yeah, we both grew up south of the city here in Millet.
Okay.
It's a small town. I mean, nothing to do other than play music.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up when we were in junior high, we owned, like, after school every day, the teachers just let us hang out in the band room.
Okay.
So we had run of that place.
Access to all that stuff.
Yeah,
and
so we just spent every day playing music after school.
Yeah. What did you guys start on?
You were on guitar?
Yeah. I was on guitar. So, that was, like in grade 8, I think I started up.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Did you take formal lessons, or did you just...
No, not really. I
started hacking it out?
Luke actually started with his guitar. I think he got it for Christmas or something like that. And then a few months later, I think I joined. Mm-hmm. And then he taught me a bunch of chords and stuff. And then I took
You taught him, and you're like, all right, now you do it. I don't want to do the guitar anymore.
Yeah.
And then I took a few months of lessons, but in Edmonton here. But then it was a lot of self-taught stuff, right? So.
Yeah, it seems like that's a lot of musicians are that way, right? Like you don't get I'm sure there's some classically trained guys, but you just kind of figure it out yourself and develop your own sound, right?
Exactly. But afterwards, both me and Luke went to university to study music and all that stuff. So
okay, so
we're trained now.
Yeah, and now you're trained. Yeah, that makes sense. So what is it like normal university where you have to pick a major and then you don't end up using it for the rest of your life, or is it a lot more applicable? Applicable?
It depends on what you do. Like, I did the university. I did the BMUS degree here at the U of A, and I did. You have to have an instrument to get in, and I didn't learn anything in terms of being formal trained. I had a little bit of piano, but everything was just by ear. So I was like, shit, how am I going to get into this thing?
Yeah.
So I auditioned on voice.
Okay.
I took a year of voice lessons because I was like, I need to get in.
Yeah. And that counts as an instrument?
It counts as an instrument. It's something I might be able to pull off in a year.
Okay.
I took a year worth of voice lessons, and then I got in. But all I really wanted to do was do composition and theory. Like, for me, it was all about writing was the fun part of it, right?
Right.
So I got in on voice, and then abandoned that, and then went straight to, like I said, composition theory. And some of that stuff you still use. Like, music history you don't use as much anymore. I mean, understanding scales from Southeast Asia it's not something you use on a daily basis.
Right.
But things like oral skills, like every morning at 7 o'clock we were there learning intervals on the piano, and like we'd have final exams where the teacher would sit at the piano and she'd play, and then we'd just have a piece of paper and she'd go write it out as I play it.
Oh, okay.
And stuff like that you use every day now, right?
Right.
Because it's like a runner running.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Train
the ear, train the circuitry between those functions in the brain, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, so what was the incarnation progression of the band? So, from Mannequin to, what was it, Divine?
Divine Madness, that was all pre-university. Then I think we got into university and we're like, trying to figure out what the next thing was.
Yeah.
You know? And Fool's Song came from we were just looking at words that we liked, and we just paired them together. We had lists and lists, and Fool's Song went together, and we're like, that's it. That makes sense. That sounds cool. It's interesting.
It's original,
something's going on, but hopefully it's nondescript enough that you're like, oh, that's not a metal band. That's not a this band. It could be whatever you want it to be.
Right.
And like our last album was a world album. It came out of a bunch of work that we were doing for theaters and for film and for other things, and then this album's an alternative rock album. And what's great about the name is that it sort of allows you to I guess genre bounce.
Yeah.
A bunch,
for sure.
Really cool.
Yeah, which I think lots of artists, or at least artists with staying power, end up doing. Right? You probably get bored playing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
You want to challenge yourself. I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I'm just so you guys have background. I'm like not musical at all. Like I sing like by myself, but that's about it. So I don't have any like theory or any background like that. So this is great for me and also for the audience to like learn a little bit of like, okay, no, like everyone's exposed to musicians, right?
Yeah.
Everyone likes music,
of course,
but no one knows what goes into it. So that's really the kind of stuff that I want to get into with you guys, and especially talk about like what struggles are there as a band trying to come up and trying to get exposure and trying to get to the next level.
Sure,
and how do you see those?
Yeah, well, I mean every musician you talk to talks about how everything has changed since CDs died. So
back in my day,
I mean that's sort of the big thing, and it's weird because I remember when we released our last album, it was all about it was about airtime, and Twitter seemed to be the thing.
Right. What year was that?
That's 2014, 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. Before what's his face took control of Twitter.
Trump,
the guy we won't talk. Yeah. And then Twitter doesn't seem to be a thing now. It's Instagram, so we got to deal with that. But I think the trick about it is the tricky thing is, it used to be that there would be a record label. Record label would enter into a partnership with a musician. They go, we think we can make money off of you.
Right.
And we have the power to advertise you to a demographic that we think will buy your brand, will buy your music, will buy your content, whatever, however you want to say it.
So you're producing, they act as a distributor of sorts, right?
Exactly. But they distribute and they market and they fund. So you're not spending 20G or way more in the case of a lot of these acts that were coming up when that was the way it happened.
Yeah.
You're not putting the money out front to record the CD album or the album up front either. So they sort of take care of that.
So like an incubator too.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, interesting.
Totally. And it's actually how theater works.
Yeah.
Right? Like I do a lot of theater scoring, and a theater takes on a show, and they hire you to perhaps do the music, they hire an actor to act in it, they hire, you know what I mean? They hire a creative team, but they have the space, the advertising, and the audience to hopefully sell that and turn a profit on it, or at least break even, or you know what I mean? So it's actually not an odd format for the arts, but that doesn't really exist anymore unless you're huge,
because the internet is distribution. You can access all your fans. You don't you need marketing, but you don't need that infrastructure.
Become your own record label. So not only are you dealing with now the creation of the music, the recording of the music, the mixing, the mastering, that whole thing. Then you have to turn the switch, right? And then you have to become your own marketing team,
right?
Your own distribution team, your own everything team, and that's it's actually taxing.
That must be challenging, especially if you fall more on the spectrum of creative versus business oriented, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same way with anything with producing films as well. Some producers are much more creative, and some producers are much more operational, much more line producers, right? They got the organization and all that.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, and if you happen to be on that side of it, I think the organizational side of the people who are good at promoting, it's a huge asset these days. And it's a more rounded out skill set. But, going back to university or going back to that training we were talking about earlier, that's something that universities and colleges don't, at least the music degrees.
Yeah. They don't teach
you. They don't teach you anything
how to
about
market,
that, right?
How to become a business.
There's none of
person, right?
Right.
Yeah,
because they haven't caught up with the times too, right?
No, and they probably won't for another 20 years.
That's super interesting. Like, I wonder what a course designed around that mentality looks like nowadays, where it's like, you've got your first hour and a half of the day is music theory. Then your next hour and a half of the day is like business theory, right? It's...
Yeah. And I'm sure I hope there are some that are moving in that direction, because it's super important.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shoot. Now I lost it. Dang it.
No, so you guys were just saying that you were going that direction with the record label, but now how are you approaching this business?
Well, it's you do everything, right? Like before Christmas, like we've been working on this album for a couple of years now, because life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could just take the time to do 40 hours a week straight. But I think you burn yourself out too, and you need to get in. You need to. The great thing about what we do. Sorry, I'm on tangents left.
No, that's all right. We got all the time in the world.
Like we both do this. Jeff teaches. Jeff gigs around. Jeff does weddings. All these sorts of things. I do a lot of theater work.
Mm-hmm.
I do a little bit of film work. So we both. I mean, music is it's the 7-day-a-week gig, obviously. Right. But we're lucky, really lucky, that we're able to engage it in all these cool different ways.
Right.
And I think that's also one of the reasons the last one was a world album and this one's an alternative rock album, is because you're continually inspired by all these things happening around you. And I think that's why it took so long to put it together.
Right.
It's because we're just sort of, eyes open, looking at the world and looking at what's happening here and what is this project and what have I learned musically from this project?
Right.
How can it influence what we're writing?
Right.
So you spend, 2 years in that creative mode. And then right before Christmas, we had a meet. We're like, shit, we got to actually... Sorry, I probably shouldn't swear.
No, you're all good. Say whatever you want.
And then we had this meet, and we're like, okay, April 28th, that's what we want to have the rehearsal, the release for.
Yeah.
We had to pick that because one of the singer, she's an actress, and she's in Joseph at Rosebud this summer, so we got to get the gig in. Otherwise, we have to wait till September.
Right. You got 6 band members. You got to balance a lot of schedules.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was the day. It was the only option. So then we went, okay, so what is our plan? Like, okay, social. We have a big list of things we want to hit on social media wise. Mm-hmm. What are the radio stations we need to go after? What are the newspaper articles that we want to go after?
Radio.
How much money do you want to kick into this? How much money do you want to kick to that? And we created the best promotional plan that we could hopefully execute and afford.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just go forward and execute it.
Right.
And then hope for the best results.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
Because I think what a lot of artists get trapped in, and I think I know that we've got trapped in it, is you think that you need to do everything too.
Mm-hmm.
And that you need to exhaust every single opportunity and every single, possible thing you can think of. And you end up stretching yourself so thin that what you put out isn't good either then, right?
Right.
You've got 40 hours a week, or you've got, whatever time you can put into your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, that's where planning becomes important. So you can use that time as effectively as possible and hopefully put out the best content within that time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, you can only, psychologically bandwidth, you can only focus on a few key things, right?
Yeah.
I always kind of think of it as like those guys who spin like a bunch of like basketballs on their appendages, right? Like you can focus on one, you can keep it spinning while the others are just sort of maintaining their momentum, but you have to dive back and put some attention on that. You've only got that singular channel, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got too many, you're not going to keep them all up. So you really got to decide like what are the avenues that are primarily going to see the most return for me and what's the most effective.
Yeah.
So are you guys are you organizing any like media stunts? Like, are we going to see any like big like earned media, like Fool's Tongue like drops a banner on the city or something like that?
Not that I know of.
No.
No,
Jeff, you're not planning that?
Not that. No, but we might come up with like a ticket giveaway kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys know the story of Alice Cooper trying to sell out in his first tour in London?
No.
So Alice was the biggest thing in North America. I forget whatever the 70s, right? Or 70s, is that right?
It sounds right.
Yeah. And so then he was booking a tour over in the UK and starting with London, and whatever stadium he had, it was an 8,000 person stadium.
Holy shit.
And a week before, he'd only sold 500 tickets. No one in London knew who Alice Cooper was. So he's talking with his marketing team and his management team and trying to figure out, like, how do we get his name out there in a week in a way in which people have to come see this guy. And Alice Cooper is also the guy in the team, his manager, oh shit, it's going to escape me. It'll come back anyway. Supermensch, Shep Gordon. Okay. Anyway, there's a really good documentary done by Mike Myers on his manager, Shep Gordon, who managed a lot of really up-and-coming people throughout the years. They were the ones who, to market Alice Cooper in North America, decided, okay, well, how do we get the kids to love us? Well, make it something that the parents tell the kids not to listen to. So that's why he went after the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll, the all that kind of gothic, demonic, satanic stuff. So parents are like, you better not listen to Alice Cooper. And what does every kid do at every point every kid in a point in his life rebels, right? In some way or another. So they go, I'm going to listen to Alice Cooper. So anyway, it's a week before his show in London. They're talking to their publicist over there, like, what can we do? Like, what do people in London like? What's a common theme? What does everyone do? He goes, well, everyone watches the morning news in London. That's like sort of the premier spot, but like they're not going to put Alice Cooper on the news. So how do we get on the news? And I go, well, like, traffic is really bad in London in the morning. Well, where's the busiest spot in town? Well, Piccadilly Circus is the biggest spot, or the most congested spot every morning. All right, so here's what we do. We rent this massive billboard on the back of a lorry, and Alice had just done a photo shoot the couple weeks before, and it was him naked laying across with a snake covering his dick. Right. That was the only thing, right?
Right.
So they plaster this on the back of a truck, and they hire a driver, and they get him to break it down in the middle of Piccadilly Circus at 7:30 a.m. And they tell the driver, and they go, you're going to get arrested. We'll take care of you. Whatever you do, swallow the key. Like, do not start that truck again. And so all the newspaper van, like all the news helicopters and vans, and everyone's there, like, seeing what the hell is going on. And it's just a picture of Alice. Who's that? He sold out the concert.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to see you guys do something like that. I don't know who's undressing with a snake, but I'll leave that up to you.
All right. Yeah, we'll make it happen.
So you say the first album was a world album. So what does that mean?
Well, at the time, I had just started working on the Canadian Badlands Passion Play. It's actually the largest outdoor theater event in Canada.
Okay.
Sorry. I'd just written all the music for it. And of course, being the Passion Play, it has all these sort of Middle Eastern influences to it. Mm-hmm. Lots of Phrygian scales, lots of, tabla drums, all kinds of cool stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that's all spinning in your brain. And we got together and that's what we went after. Yeah. That was what was interesting at that point in time. Okay. Were those sort of world influences. So we put together a 12-song album. It's called New World, and it was all world music.
Writing all the music together, and then we hired a bunch of guys to come play for the show. For the actual album, it was mostly samples and
we did the whole album ourselves, just the two of us. Except for the female vocalist, that actress we were talking about, Cassia. Mm-hmm. We brought her up. And then we were like, shit, how are we going to play this thing live? There's no way.
I didn't think of that.
We can't do it, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So we got together a band at that point. We're like, okay, we need to do this. Yeah. We scored it all out. Like, it was all sheet music. Everybody had it was like almost like a class. Yeah, it's totally like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then that sort of became the band after that. Okay. Right? So, like, the auxiliary percussionist that we use, he's a native guy from the Mesquatchie Reserve. I probably pronounced that wrong. I never know where to put
Josh Littlechild.
Yeah. Okay. So he's the guy who got us powwow drums and stuff, and he's the guy that we did all that percussion with this album now. Mm-hmm. And it was because we had to get him just to be able to perform the last one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this is an alternative rock album.
Yes.
But I've listened to it, and it doesn't sound like alternative rock that I've heard before.
Okay, well then I'm told. What does it sound like to you?
Well, again, I'm not musical, right? Like if I were to put it into like a descriptor for me, it would almost be like rock symphony. At least a few tracks, like I
Right.
listened, I think 5 or 6 tracks, and it's just very like epic. Like that's the best way to describe it, because there's so much going on, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different layers to it, and then watching your video is like, I think you're playing guitar with Jeff's playing guitar with a bow,
Violin.
a violin bow
Yeah.
or a cello bow or something.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how do you guys even think that kind of stuff up? Is that common?
No.
It was done. Well, Jimmy Page did it in the 70s. So,
Okay.
I mean, there's a few other bands who did a similar kind of thing, but yeah, I just liked the sound of it at the time, and it was visually cool, right? So we introduced that into the last album. But.
It came from a tracks, right? We were trying to figure something out in the studio. I can't remember what it was, but we're like, well, it's got to be bowed. Like, that's the sonic answer to the problem. I don't remember what the problem was anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
There was clearly
Forget
something.
the problem, but you know the answer.
The answer
right?
was that Jeff needed to bow the part, right? So I mean, I don't know where we had the bow, but anyways,
I don't know. Yeah, but
and then we had a friend in Southern Alberta. Actually, the instrument he played was custom built by a guy in Southern Alberta. Built to sort of Jeff's specs to be able to do more than where the idea started from.
it's kind of like a guitar cello.
Oh, you had that custom built.
Yeah.
Wow. What does something like that cost?
That was, I don't know, like, he gave me a really good deal on it. It was probably like $1,500 or something like that.
And had he done anything before like that?
He built like acoustic guitars, a few electrics, but nothing like of this sort. So
Okay.
it was a pretty cool project, though. Yeah.
So all in all, how many different instruments are on your average live set, say?
Well, this will be a 6-piece. It'll be a 6-piece band. So
yeah.
I'll be on Chapman stick. But I also attach a little synthesizer to it because there's a lot of like synth bass and stuff in that album. So we're
Explain
like,
what that Chapman stick.
Yeah, I know what it
sorry,
looks like, but I don't really know how to describe it.
it's like a guitar, very, very similar to a guitar, except for that it goes as low as a bass guitar.
Okay.
And instead of using two hands, because usually what happens is your left hand on a guitar, assuming you're right-handed, holds down the fret, which gives a length of string, and then you pluck it with this hand, with a pick or with your finger, which creates the vibration. But on the Chapman stick, the right-hand part is omitted. So by hitting the string hard, you press it to the correct fret, which gives you the distance to create the pitch, but you also set the motion, the string in motion,
Okay.
which gives you the sound.
Right.
So more like a piano, you can use both hands to play pitch.
Gotcha.
And then the left hand usually covers bass register, right hand covers guitar register.
Okay.
And then it comes out into two different amplifiers.
So what differentiates guitar versus bass in terms of, I know like bass is obviously deeper, but how do you achieve that on such a small instrument?
Well, they cut the body out, so when you look at it, it looks like just the neck.
Okay.
Right?
A big fat
so it's a
guitar
big fat neck, which helps because it's a bit smaller then you don't have that body, but the neck is thick. Like a guitar body is, what neck's inch and a half, 2 inches?
Yeah, it's about 2 inches.
Yeah, mine is about 4 inches.
Okay.
So it's quite long. And then instead of playing, I guess you'd say horizontally with the neck going out to your left or right, it hooks onto your belt and goes vertically so you can wrap so like a cello, you can get your fingers onto it a bit easier.
Okay. And how many strings are there on there?
10.
10. Holy
10 strings.
smokes. That's pretty specialized
It's
instrument.
a cool thing.
How long did it take you to learn to do that?
I've been playing that for 10 years now. Something like that.
What set that off for you?
I saw a guy play it. A guy named Fergus Marsh was here. I think he was playing with Bruce Coburn. And I watched. I went to the show, and he was playing all the bass parts, and he's playing all this other stuff. And I was just like, I gotta have that thing, right? It's like you can do so much with that. You can make so many sounds. So I was hooked as soon as I saw what he could do. Right.
So that's what you've got. You sing. You've got the Chapman stick.
Yeah.
Chapman stick.
Yeah.
And then, all right, walk us through the rest of the ensemble.
Well,
there.
the stick has a synth on it now.
Yeah.
I've changed my stick from the traditional stick. I've added a mini synthesizer onto the side of it, which also runs through my computer then, so that like I said, synth parts or strings or piano if you need it, I can trigger that as well while moving around with the stick.
It's unbelievable. You can
Got a
keep
whole
track
orchestra.
of so much, like all at
Yeah,
once.
it's an animal. And then Jeff's on. I don't know.
I'm
lots
on
of
guitar.
guitars.
Just boring old ass guitar, hey?
A little bit of singing.
Yeah.
But then we have a keyboard player, Erica Van Drunen, and we went to McEwen together for music, but she also went to Liverpool to study music there.
Okay.
She came back.
Yeah.
And,
Did she come back like a new woman, like just totally
Married.
immersed? Oh, okay, yeah. I was going musically, but yeah, that's a big change too.
But no, she's got a bunch of bands
Yeah.
in Edmonton happening, and we were lucky enough to have her back on this album. So
Nice.
we got her on keys, and she does
sings.
background vocals for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Josh Littlechild on percussion, and he's surrounded by
All sorts of
drums. He's
drums.
got a big powwow drum over here.
Yeah.
and a billion other things. So it's going to be really cool to see that.
So what drums have you brought in? Because I in your bio it says you brought in every drum that you could find.
We
So
did.
walk us through
We
these.
did.
Sure.
Well, not all of them make it to the stage.
Okay.
We just can't.
Yeah.
It's,
For
it's
the,
ridiculous.
on the recording,
They're all there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Like I said, the coolest ones. I'll talk about the ones that are, of course, have the most. Well, anyways,
Appeal.
we have a powwow drum.
Yeah.
We got that from Josh. Got that. It's not the one that he bought one afterwards so that we could go live with it. But he got one from the band, and it was interesting because we had
From the native band.
yes. Sorry.
Is that the right term? Native? Aboriginal?
Aboriginal band, First Nations band.
I mean no offense to anyone.
Oh,
So you got it from his
obviously.
peoples.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he has the legitimate right to play it.
Fair enough.
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talk about this every single band rehearsal.
So I couldn't play it, you couldn't play
Well,
it.
that's where that was interesting. One of the percussionists that we used on our last album is a woman named Alison McIver, and she was planning on coming in to record powwow drums with us. Because you want as many players as you can.
Right.
A powwow drum isn't played by one person. What's cool, what makes the powwow drum sound cool, is the fact that not all the sticks, because you have multiple players, hit the drum at the same time. There's a little bit of flamber.
Oh, okay.
And if you slow, like we actually slowed down some of the hits, and you can actually hear the
Cool.
like
Right.
it's and that's
So you're
the
not,
sound.
you're hitting it and I'm hitting it, we're hitting it, so I might be hitting it as it's popping up from your hit kind of thing. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And on the album, you wouldn't go, oh, they're clearly off. It's like everybody's close enough that it still feels like a concise rhythm, but that's what sounds cool about the instrument.
yeah. Neat.
And
But-
it's loud.
And
It's really
it's
loud.
ridiculous.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
the sticks they use are made out of plastic, so when you go back,
They bend?
Whoa.
And then when you come down, they whip down and hit it even harder.
Holy smokes.
It's a crazy, weird instrument. But we couldn't have her come in.
Right.
Because this drum was a male drum.
Oh, no.
So it's talking about,
How
who has the
dare
right
they
to
tell
play
her
it,
what she
right?
can and can't do for being a woman?
We and you like if they're we were borrowing the instruments, so we can't really tell them
Right. That's
who
interesting.
plays it, right?
So
I wonder how that
felt-
plays
I
out
felt
in
really
a...
bad about
in a-
that.
It just depends on the band too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think some.
Yeah, some bands
women
are
can-
cool with it.
So you didn't want to do it because you didn't want to offend them who lent you the drum.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Now the drum that we have, Josh owns, and he would be fine
Okay.
with obviously with a woman playing it.
Right.
He doesn't happen to be a woman, but
Very
that was
progressive
because
of
we,
Josh.
I know, right? 2018, right?
Yeah, just get with the times. Okay.
But then we had Ewe drums, which are a traditional African drum. I think it would be Northeast Africa, right?
Not
Pretty sure.
exactly sure.
But it's actually a set of drums. So it's a whole grouping. But they're known, unlike a powwow drum, which has a large head, usually made of like a moose or something like that, but then relatively shallow. They have a really small head, but they're incredibly long.
Right,
So
okay.
the one was 5 or 6
Yeah,
feet
5 or
long.
6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Right, but the
Really
head is
skinny.
only a foot across.
So what does that give you a deeper sound or a higher sound?
It's different.
Different sound.
It's usually a lower pitch because the length of the chamber defines your pitch, just like saxophones. Like if you play your soprano saxophone as the smallest saxophone, giving you the highest pitch.
Gotcha.
And your bass
Baritone
baritone saxophone
Yeah.
is the
really
lowest,
big
but
one.
it has the longest tube, so to speak. Right. So
Gotcha.
it lowers the pitch, but it doesn't have the same attack because the head is smaller.
Okay.
If that sort of makes
Yeah.
sense. So it's a different sound.
Attack is the
Yeah,
play
the
air.
sound it makes when you strike it, like
Okay.
right at the beginning.
Oh, I didn't know it was called that.
Yeah,
We're learning a lot today. All right, and that one's called a what?
those are Ewe drums.
Ewe drums?
And then we had, tons of djembes, tons of frame drums, which are like your borans, just a frame,
Like a
no
Celtic,
body.
a Celtic drum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where did you guys even come up with the idea of including these? Did you know anything about it? Did you get the drum first and then learn about it, or did you do research and think this is the sounds we want?
We just Well, I had a friend who studied in Africa a little bit, and when he came back to Canada, he had somebody build him some drums out of trees.
Okay.
And then he got him shipped over, right? And I knew about this, and I said, "Wow, maybe we can get him to, lend him his drums." And so we were able to get them and use them for the album. But I don't know, we were just seeing if we knew anybody who had these instruments, and
I think part of it was about process. Like the World album we did, like it was just us in a room doing our thing, and
using a lot of samples.
Yeah.
And then we went to this one. We're like, well, we have to do something different,
Right.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to just make the same album.
Yeah,
again, 'cause
not 2.0.
That's boring. I'm not interested in that idea. So we were like, what can we do that would be super fun and super inspiring and super different and something that hopefully lead us in a cool direction. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then Jeff was like, this guy's got the drums, and we're like, well, Josh could probably get us a powwow drum. So then we're like, well, that makes sense. And then we just sort of run it down the road. I mean, again, that's why it takes 2 years to put an album together, right? Like, again, when you're dealing with record labels, a band comes in with 12 songs, it's drums, bass, guitar, keys, or whatever the instrumentation is, and there's pressure to get it done quickly, pressure to get it done the way that producer or company wants to get it done, which leads to half the music we hear on the radio, but it also leads to a specific way of creating the music, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of rushed, it's produced, there's no time for experimentation, right? So your guys' album has evolved really organically for all intents and purposes, right?
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So, and just to wrap up the instrument part of this, because I'm curious, like what are the other main ones that you've got in there? What's unique to it?
Percussion-wise, there's those guys. We had, like I said, lots of frame drums, lots of djembes, thunder sheets. We have quite a few different shakers. I mean, it sounds like a stupid thing to talk about shakers, because we always think there's an egg shaker, right? But there's some amazing shakers out there. We got one they call a Cyclops, which opens and closes. So as you shake it, you can actually adjust timbre on the fly.
Yeah.
There's another one. What's the
Torpedo?
The Torpedo, which is it's a shaker this big.
Yeah,
completely
you
metal.
play like this.
Yeah,
and then it's got ribbed sides so that you can brush other instruments across it.
Yeah,
exactly. Right.
Don't refer to that one by name if you're taking it on a plane, right? Hey, who's got the Torpedo?
The ribbed Torpedo.
Yeah, the ribbed Torpedo.
I think those are from what I remember in terms of percussion, those are the
castanets.
Big ones. Lots of castanets. Yeah.
What's a castanet?
A castanet is this teeny. It's the first track you hear that there's a it's castanet.
Okay.
It's two little bells.
Yeah.
they're about the size of your thumb.
Yeah.
Made out of wood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they? I think.
Oh,
no, they're
plastic.
metal.
Sometimes they're
plastic or metal or wood. I think ours are metal. But anyways, and then they're much like a piano. There's a little hammer that hits it.
Oh, okay.
And then two little levers. So the whole opening to the album, I mean, it sounds big when you listen to it, or at least it sounds like we're going somewhere. There's a sense of anticipation.
Right.
But recording it is Josh, our percussionist, he's built like a football player, right? He's huge. And like all these microphones, all these microphones around these two little bells, and he's just going, just totally focused, right? In the moment. He's hilarious to watch when he plays triangle.
Yeah.
Because
I bet.
Huge guy, and he's just
has to hold it with two fingers, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. Percussion. It wasn't until after the percussion was recorded that we did the actual drum set. Which is totally backwards, but whatever. And then we recorded that. It is a traditional drum set. Like, there's nothing really weird about the actual drum set. Then we started layering, obviously, guitars of various forms, Chapman stick and bass and whatnot. Then we decided we wanted a horn section.
May as well throw it in, right?
Yeah, it felt right. Well, we had all these big, long, big bass lines that just move, and they felt kind of fake because they were synths, right? And I know that everybody's doing synths these days, but part of us was like, it just doesn't feel quite right, especially given all the real percussion that we had just done.
Right.
I think maybe it was you know what I mean? Had those all been like synthesized drums, maybe the synth bass would have been fine by itself.
Right.
But because they weren't, We
Didn't fit the mold,
Yeah,
right?
it didn't fit. So we
Yeah.
brought in trombones and trumpets to do that. And then proceeded to do vocals. And then we put together a little ragtag choir. We actually recorded it at Jeff's
my
condo.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was a little condo, and we had
a
15
vaulted
to 20
ceiling,
people.
though,
But
so-
yeah, it had a vaulted ceiling. So
Yeah.
20 people in there.
You get any
Bunch of microphones
curious
and-
neighbors if they could join the church session going on
Yeah,
in your
yeah,
apartment,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, so we recorded some gang vocals there, and I think it.
That worked well.
There's a huge array of sounds that we had, and I think we captured some really cool stuff.
So when did you guys put the what was the press date on the album? Like when did you say, all right, it's done?
It was around. I think we wanted to get it done around Christmas time, just after January.
Yeah,
or
it was
something.
done. I think we had it back from the mastering just before Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Like it takes those final edits is what takes the longest.
Right.
Most of the music was, I would say, 90% done this
Right.
time last year.
So you lay it all down and then you sort of adjust things as you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
you mix it, and then you bounce those, and you put them on a CD because we're still old school.
Yeah.
And you put it in the car, and you listen to it for a week.
Right.
And you just make notes on your phone, like
Yeah.
this needs to change, this needs to change, this is cool. Then you go back and you change it, and then you do that whole thing again. Until you're like, well, I don't have any more notes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right.
That's what they say. That no work of art is ever done, right? It's
Well,
just
of course.
it's just done well enough to release it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's interesting. You said in the car, there's a music producer, and I can't remember the name of him, but that's his test. He takes it. He lives
yeah.
in California, goes in his convertible, cranks it up, drives the Pacific Coast Highway, and if it feels right, like if it makes him puts him in a good mood, then he knows. All right, we've got something here, right?
Right.
Well, and I think the reason for that, I mean, I've thought about that lots because I produce lots of other stuff too in the studio, and it's one of the things I do all the time too is listen to it in the car. The car is so loud.
Loud, yeah.
So like when you're in your studio, you got your really good monitors, you can hear everything, and you can mix it till it sounds like all of the parts are there, and I notice all the details, and you can be really happy with yourself about it. When you get in the car, detail goes to the wind. What all that ambient noise I think does is forces us to just focus on the most important things. Usually that's like the guitars, the voice, and the kick drum, the bass.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they're jiving, and if they're at the right level or whatever, it'll feel great in your car, even if that other information gets lost.
Yeah.
All the low-level stuff.
Yeah, and you have to realize too that like the majority of your audience isn't going to be as proficient in musical understanding as you guys are, right?
No.
Like even I listen to a lot of music, but then if I watch like a behind the scenes on how like an album is made, I'm like, oh, I'd never even heard that instrument in there before until you watch the making of, right?
Right.
It was Red Hot Chili Peppers were always my guys growing up, right?
Yeah.
And then watching the Blood Sugar Sex Magic album get made in that old mansion in LA with Rick Rubin, seeing them record it in black and white, it just like gives you a whole nother level of appreciation for it because you just don't think about that. Or seeing someone perform live, right?
Yeah, of course.
That's
right. Of course.
So do you have someone on staff, like the layman's listener? Like, do you have someone who you can, like, a proxy that you can sort of run your sound by and be like, listen, I know you don't know shit about music, but how does this sound to you? Because you got to be close to it, right?
Well, I showed my wife.
Yeah, both
she
of our
would
wives
give
are
me
not
her
musical.
What'd she
honest
think?
opinions. Yeah, she'd tell me like her honest opinions. Like she wouldn't sugarcoat anything. And be like,
Perfect.
"Oh, this sounds
That sounds like a
Sounds
good
weird.
wife. Yeah. Sounds weird.
Yeah.
But how weird? Like, weird you're curious, or weird you're not curious?
I know.
Weird you're not curious.
I know, and that's a tricky line.
yeah.
It's a really tricky line, and I think it's an important line though. Like, I think that the best artists, the artists that I love the most, are the guys who walk down that line.
Yeah.
It's weird, but it's weird, and I want to know more about that because there's at least enough to get me hooked.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's a super important thing for an artist to try and find that line. Whether we found it or not, I don't know. I'm just saying that I think that's an important line to try and find, and I think that the best artists are looking to sit somewhere on there or bounce across it a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or piss people off too, right? Like,
Sure.
if your music pisses half your audience off and the other half likes it, you're in a really good spot, right?
Huh. Yeah.
So who do you guys see as your audience?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. We tend to geared towards, I think, an older crowd.
Older being like 30s, 40s, 50s. How old are you guys?
30s,
Early 30s, yeah.
Early 30s. Okay,
I would think that's probably in our world 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gearing towards 15-year-olds.
No.
I think, obviously.
Right. You're not Miley Cyrus. No offense to both.
No, none taken. Right.
I meant looks wise. Well, that's it. That's an interesting demographic, because you've also, not only are you going with people who aren't necessarily the biggest consumers, but also you're kind of fighting that resistance to technology, right? That's a demographic that grew up with radio and CD cassette kind of.
Yeah.
And so they're not necessarily proficient with Apple Music and Spotify and those. So you're fighting an uphill battle for those guys.
There's no question. No question we are.
Yeah.
But then again, if we were to do the opposite, like, I've thought about it. Obviously, I've thought about it. Why don't I just sit down and try and write kitschy pop music? Like, I can write music. I've got a studio. I've got, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it would probably be terrible. I think you got to believe it.
It's got to be authentic, for sure.
Like, the thing about Michael Jackson is you watch him and he believed it. He really believed it.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe it, I don't think you got hope.
Yeah.
You have to go with what you believe. At least that's my belief.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's true. Yeah.
I think there's two elements to it. It's loving what you do, because that really comes out no matter. You can't fake that, right?
Of course.
People, especially when you're seen in your element, they know for sure if you're enjoying yourself or not.
Yeah.
And just being, no matter what it is, whether it's weird or not, is being the best at it, right?
Sure.
And being so if you play the Chapman stick. If I've never seen it before, but you're the best fucking Chapman stick player I've ever seen, I'm intrigued, right?
Of course.
I'm like, that's really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So the example I think is like, have you ever seen those videos of people like working really average jobs but doing them very superhuman? The guys like laying the plates in the dishwasher racks or throwing the fish in the Seattle fish markets down by the wharf. Like, those guys love what they do and they're fucking amazing at it.
Yeah.
So,
and we're drawn to that.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
What's the stage presence like? Do you guys have personas? Are you yourselves? You get a little bit more amped up? How does that play out?
Well, I mean, obviously you get amped up. I mean, that is part of it.
Hope so.
It's joy. Like, it really is one of the funnest things to do is to play live music.
I bet.
It is, and I talk about jazz music sometimes when I talk to people about this. I can't listen to jazz music.
Oh, like on the radio or in an album?
Yeah, to put a jazz CD on, I can't do it. But man, if you're playing bass in a jazz band, it is so much fun because you're in control of it. You're in the middle of it. Playing live is unbelievable.
Right, and those guys freestyle for all intents and purposes. Right?
Yeah. There's a chord progression that they're following. The whole band is on, but then within the context of that chord progression, they're free to do whatever fits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all improv.
That's wild.
But that takes skill, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I when I was studying at MacEwan, one of my instructors said, "Yeah, you could essentially play any note you want, but you just have to remember to come back into a note that also works, you know.
Right.
But you could be going, blazing fast and still hit all the notes, and it'll still fit." As long as you understand, you have to come back to a note that actually is in the key and sounds good. And but then you're limitless, right? You can do whatever you want. And it's
how do you train that? Practice, years.
Yeah, you learn scales.
Yeah.
You learn all your scales. You learn what those chords are. You learn what notes fit in a given chord. And then once all that knowledge has been accrued, you just have to do it a bunch of times. Right?
Yeah.
That's when your 10,000 hours comes in, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you do it for 10,000 hours, chances are you're going to be good at it, right? And that's when it gets fun when you're good at it too. This is why a lot of people don't get through the first 3 years of music lessons. It's because it takes the first 10 years before you're really at the place where you can just go.
Yeah, take control of it. Yeah.
No one likes being bad at something.
No,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Music's one of those specialized things. It's not like running. Even if you suck at running, you can still run, right?
Yeah, sure.
But to get to a playable level or an acceptable level, that it takes a long time. It
takes a ridiculous amount of time. And then there's another part to it that I think I've been learning, which is when you become a band leader. So when we play, there's a 6-piece band, but the two of us are sort of in charge. Like, there has to be a hierarchy. There has to be a system in place, right? So now you have to be at the place where not only, and I think this has to do live too with being able to read an audience. Not only are you inside the music, not only are you, quote unquote, playing the right notes, hitting the right things, doing it in a believable, fun way, but you need to be able to then look at the audience and know what are they thinking, and make sure you can hear the percussion part and be judging that so that you can know what to do next. Or like, there's this whole hierarchy of thought.
Yeah.
It's actually really cool.
You go into like automation almost.
Yeah,
right?
parts
like,
of your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Go into automation to free up your brain to try and think about the next thing, and it's really cool. And I think that's what like musicians, they say, have some of the best left brain, right brain sort of functionality, is because it everything's going.
Right.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And it is. It's kind of like a high when you do that, right?
For sure. Well, I imagine it's similar to like, really great athletes who can, stick handle in a phone booth while simultaneously analyzing what's going on in the ice, right? It's like, the stick handling is so innate and just so practiced that you don't have to think about that. It frees up your brain to do other things, right?
You can have a conversation with somebody while doing...
Yeah, exactly. Throwing free throws, so how's your day?
The body just knows, right? It's muscle memory. And yeah, it's interesting.
So the premiere show is coming up. Is that right?
April 28th.
April 28th at the Capitol Theater. Fort Edmonton Park. So why'd you pick that venue?
It's stunning.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I know, I saw pictures. I didn't even know that venue was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we looked at a bunch of venues. We were thinking about maybe doing it actually at the new art gallery too, but the ceiling was a little bit low.
Mm-hmm. You need space for your music to fill, right?
Yeah, and it just feels right. Sounds crazy, but we had to do something that felt right, and the idea of doing it in a bar just makes me want to puke. It's not that music. You don't go to, you know what I mean? It's you want to go and you want to see an event, and that's a space where you can go and see an event happen,
right?
As opposed to, I don't know, like a bar or something else like this, where you go to see a metal band or you know what I mean? You got to have drinks and forget.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't know what percentage of the audience remembers you, right? Yeah. That's one thing I always thought about going to see like a big act, and then they've got the openers. You're like, yeah, I really like this, and you even like not Spotify, but you like write down the name of them and try and find the song later. But then you go back and listen to it, you're like, I don't know why I like this so much. Maybe it's the context and the anticipation of the artist coming up. Because you're like, yeah, this is awesome. I really enjoy it.
And I think it's something about energy level, too. Like, music is pure energy. When you listen to it, it literally is waves of energy in the air hitting your ears, which is why when you turn your stereo up, you like the music better. You're actually creating more energy, not emotional energy, like just physical energy in the air.
Right.
You go to a stadium show, there's a lot of energy that they're putting out into the air. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a lot of what has to do with people going there and just loving it and getting so excited, is that there's just so much energy in the air.
Yeah.
And again, the Capitol Theater, that's why we wanted something like that. I mean, it's not a stadium. I wish we could just sell out a stadium.
Right. Step by step, right?
Exactly, right? But it's a big enough space and it's an open enough space that you feel like there's just enough air in the room to energize.
Right. How many people fit in there?
250 or something like that, max.
Okay. Yeah. And how are ticket sales going?
They're pretty good so far.
Yeah, still got a few left?
Oh, yeah, we got a few left for sure.
Where can people go to find tickets for that?
Tix on the Square.
On where?
Tix on the Square.
What's that?
So it's kind of like Ticketmaster, but it's based in Edmonton.
Okay.
And,
so it's online?
Yeah, TIX.
TIX?
Yeah, TIX.
TIX on the Square.
Yeah, if you look up Tix on the Square and then just put Fool's Tongue after, it'll be the first thing that comes up in Google.
Okay. Good to know.
You can also go to our website, www.foolstongue.ca.
Foolstongue.ca.
There's links on there.
Yeah. Perfect. So walk me through the description of the album, because it was really interesting, and I want to ask you guys a couple questions about it. But yeah, I'll let you take that.
You mean like the songs themselves?
No, like in that one page you sent me, the description of the album. The sound is like. What does it say?
Sorry, man.
No, that's okay. It sounds the sounds at the end of the world. Let's talk about that. Like, where did the idea of this come from? Was that a description that you tagged on after, or was that the sound you were going for in the first place? It was what we were
going for. We last album we did, it was a bit of a concept album. Okay. It was about a guy who wakes up to a mysterious woman throwing rocks at his window, and follows her sort of down Alice in Wonderland.
All right,
and
cool.
it wasn't literal. I mean, you know what I mean. It was a place to start the songs from, to know what we wanted to write next.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he has an experience, and it changes his life. Was sort of the gist of it, which is why I call it New World.
Right.
The idea that he enters some kind of new world, and it changes him somehow. I mean, that's classic art for you.
Right.
And then so...
Well, I think that's so relatable, too, because we're consistently being destroyed of what we believe, what we think, and rebuilt, right?
Yeah.
Every
for sure.
thought, anytime you come across something new, it destroys your previous, concept of everything.
Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense.
And then we had this one. I can't remember the exact time. These things percolate in your brain a little
right.
bit. But I do remember I was doing a show in Vancouver, and I'm from small town Alberta. I still live in the country, so it's weird for me to see all the glass, and you know that there's somebody behind each pane of glass.
Right, they're right there, but you can't see them.
Yeah, it's so weird, and you just think about there's a lot of people, and what are they thinking? What are they doing? And how do you actually engage someone, and how do you find out what they really believe, what they really want, and for some reason the idea that the things that are most important to us happen in the moment that we're faced with loss. I mean, that is when we forgive people for their sins, is when we know someone's going to die, and you can't hold on to hate, all those sorts of things.
Right.
We're sort of going through the brain, and so it sort of turned, as we were talking about that and writing, we sort of went, let's just write a group of songs about perspectives sort of on the end of the world, and hopefully find some kind of cool emotional content with all these different perspectives about the end of the world.
Right.
It's not a concept album in that track 1 has to go before track 2 because track 2 is part of a story. There's no story.
Right.
It's just, different shards of glass, maybe, reflecting the end of the world for different people.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, and I mean,
that's a good way.
It's you can listen back to that and put that on the website.
Yeah.
But no, it totally makes sense, because you're right. Like having that end date on existence really puts things in perspective, right? Like if you take your life today and all the shit that's important to you in the next month, and then all of a sudden I tell you, you're going to die in 32 days. Your next 31 days are going to look really, really different. And they're going to be a completely different perspective. You're going to treat people differently. You're going to accept things, and the shit doesn't matter. You let it go, right? And I think people are so apt to hold on to the things that hurt us, and it's hard to, because the reality is people go through really bad things. Life is suffering, and it's tough to find the joy and find the peace in what you like doing and what you enjoy doing, and try not to get what other people are doing affect you in any negative way. So I think it's a really cool concept for the sound, and I think it's that's a deep one to try and conceptualize.
Yeah, and I hope the thing isn't depressing. We didn't go after it going, this is a depressing idea. We actually went, this is cool. This is interesting, and hopefully there's actually a lot of hope in this idea. You know what I mean? Which is the take we tried to spin on it. Yeah, it's aggressive. The album is, but like you said, it's also epic in its scale and the sounds, because we were like, how do you find the landscape for those emotions?
Yeah.
Well, it's not just, no offense, but 3 chords and the truth on your guitar, right? It's it innately needs something a bit bigger and more luxurious, maybe.
Right. Well, when we conceptualize our humanity and us as our existence, we always think of it on a bigger plane, right? Think of the biblical archetypical stories of Adam and Eve and Revelations and hell, and everything is on a big scale, and we don't really think about that way in our daily lives. Just being in this office or being on this street, it feels very mundane almost, right? So it's cool to that's what a lot of art does. It takes people out of their reality and their everyday life. Sure. So if you can bring them to that place and make them think things. And I think one of your descriptions is, what's going through a guy's head right before he pulls the suicide bomb chord.
Yeah,
that's super fascinating, right?
Yeah. I don't know why, but we were writing. We're like, this song's about a suicide bomber, what we really tried to do in that song actually was, again, it's about a guy who feels like he's doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. He actually feels like this is the right choice
100%.
to make for the people in his life. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to try and actually go after that idea, even though it's
pretty controversial.
It's controversial, and it's probably a deal. But and the goal isn't to be controversial about it. It's just to go, this is his end. Mm. This is his moment, and what does he think?
Yeah. Well, he thinks he's going down in a ball of glory, right? Like it's the same with the Japanese suicide bombers, or not bombers, the
kamikazes.
The kamikazes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it's just that's what they've been inundated with to believe. That's their religion, right? And who's to say objectively, of course, that's wrong. You should never kill innocent people, but like in their reality, they're doing the right thing. Yeah, and that's what's so interesting.
And it's in their reality. Mm-hmm. Morality is judged differently than in our 100%.
Reality. No one wakes up.
Fascinating.
No one wakes up saying, "I'm going to be a bad guy today."
No.
I mean, you look at like the most recent example of tyranny and Hitler, and it's like he didn't wake up thinking he's a bad guy. He genuinely believed he thought he was doing the right thing.
Sure, yeah. How else do you actually go through all those acts? Mm-hmm. Right? Like
100%. Yeah. Well, that's really cool that you guys are going to, tap into that and share that.
Well, again, it's one of these things where those are things that we're fascinated with as just as dudes.
Yeah.
And if we were just fascinated with going to the bar and hooking up, our music wouldn't be this. Mm-hmm. But that's not who we are. I mean, like we said, we're in our early 30s now. Mm-hmm. We're interested in what I would term real things.
Yeah.
And our music has to reflect that. Otherwise, we're not being true to who we are.
Mm-hmm. So, what are the things that are going to interest you in the next 5 and 10 years? Where do you want to go from this? Sorry to ask the tough questions, but it's kind of my job here.
We've started a few tracks on the next album. We've sketches, I'd call them, because nothing's real.
Yeah, an assembly.
Yeah. And it's about like just putting this out there, and you put this on this side of the table, and then you go, oh, is there a relationship? And then you sort of, before you know it, you find something. Right. But there's. I've got kids now, so I've written a couple tunes about the idea that about holding. How do you say it? I actually haven't thought about it until right now. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm like writing, and you're like, I think this is it, and then this is the first time I've actually tried to clarify the thought.
No, hash it out, man. Bust it out here. Let's talk it out.
But
what do you think? Like how your perspective changed?
Perspective changed, but there's this idea now that is super new to me. Mm-hmm. That.
How old are your kids?
My youngest just turned 1 yesterday.
Okay, awesome.
And my oldest is about to turn 4. Okay. So they're still pretty young, right? This is still pretty new.
They're not like quite people yet. They're almost like 4-year-olds, almost a person.
But there's this idea now that before you get into the world and you try and carve, it feels like you're trying to carve a place out for yourself. Mm-hmm. Whether that be, with someone or in work or in finances or however you want to think of that, whatever. And then you have kids, and now you go, it's not about carving a place for yourself, it's about trying to preserve the world for them.
There's
this idea that you do anything to the world to make sure that thing is safe forever. Mm-hmm. And there's been a couple songs that have sort of taken on that tangent about, what do you do to make sure that the people you love are safe?
Right.
And what can you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, safe in a framework, right? But you also need to let them make their own mistakes and screw up. And
because she's 4, I haven't got that far yet.
Right,
I'm still stuck on the point. You know what I mean?
Still worried about her banging her head on something.
yeah, exactly. When she's a teen, the album after that will be the opposite, right?
I like that. That's it. That's the great thing about life is that there's always material to draw from, right? Yeah. Like unless you just don't change ever, but that's sad in its own right. But if you guys are going through life and making changes, and it's just cool that you guys. So you would have known each other for what, like over 10 years now, 15, 20 years.
20 years.
What grade did you start going to school together?
Like grade 2.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
I have
forever.
one buddy like that, and we
Yeah.
go to school forever. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is a neat thing.
It is,
right?
It's amazing.
And to be able to like define your career as maybe not 100% together,
yeah,
but
still
in the same
collaborate,
vein,
you
right?
know,
Collaborate.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knew? Crazy.
And Jeff, what about you? Where are you at in life? What's going on?
Well, I recently got married. So, that's,
Congrats.
thank you. That's
To a lady who calls you on your shit, which
yeah,
is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
What's her name?
CO. We call her CO.
CO.
Yeah, kind of like, well, it's spelled XIAO.
Oh, okay.
But she told all her friends when she was younger. She's from Beijing. And
All right.
she
I was just in
called me
Beijing.
CO. Oh, is that right?
Yes. Cool town.
Yeah, it's interesting.
City.
Very cool.
22 million.
Yeah.
Big city.
Yeah.
Hey, CO, how you doing?
Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, just a different, perspective, I guess, from just seeing how she feels and what she sees in me and how she sees the world, and that's been a huge impact on my life, I would say. And if I'm not sure if it's been reflected in any of my music, I'm sure it has, right? But
subconsciously sort of snuck in there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we have a little cat. We have a cat.
Hey, fur baby.
It's our our child, and so that's always comforting. And when I'm playing guitar or something, and she's always there, and
Right.
hanging out with me, and so.
You probably, I'm sure Luke has told you to cherish the time before kids now.
Oh, yeah.
While you have time to dick around and do fun little things for yourself, because you probably don't have a lot of time.
No. Time is in short supply.
Well, I appreciate you guys making the time to come out for this and chat.
Thank you so much.
It's awesome. I always say like the podcast is sort of my one man mission to meet everyone in Edmonton, right?
Cool.
And expose people to different avenues and different people's artwork and jobs and businesses and ideas and all that. But I think it's rare that people get together and have these kind of longer conversations.
Yeah, it is really nice actually. We've done a couple, like Leduc Flyer did a paper on it, or Leduc Rep did an article on us, but they basically just took the information that I sent them and paraphrased it.
Right.
I was like, really, that's what counts for journalism? Like, I shouldn't say
Well,
that.
it's all
I don't mean to sound negative.
But the difference is they have advertisers and they have numbers. There's certain criteria that they have to hit in a specific space. I have none of that. We could talk for an hour. We could talk for 4 hours. And I'm not trying to satisfy anyone other than myself, and other than to give the guests an opportunity to elaborate on whatever's going on in their life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it's a cool thing.
You can write as much as you want, but it's never going to be the same as just hashing it out, having a conversation.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How'd you guys come across the podcast?
We knew that podcast it's so weird again because the last album, the idea of being on a podcast didn't even occur to me.
Right.
4 years ago, I would have been like, I don't know, but now we're like, okay, what are the things that we want to like? What are avenues to get name out there? What are avenues to do it? And of course, podcasts come up, so I just searched local podcasts.
Yeah,
I was like, because that's how I want to go. You want to try and get as much of your content into local areas you can. And that's how you came up.
Interesting. I didn't even know I was on there anywhere.
Good old Google, right?
Yeah, good old Google, exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if they... Anyways, that's a long
Well, that was
story.
funny because like your message came in. It was in that like message request. So I never saw it in my inbox.
Right, that's such a weird thing, right?
I admire your tenacity because 3 messages later, I look back, I'm like, shit, this guy messaged me a month ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, sorry, literally just seeing your messages now. Because it's so hidden and it doesn't give you a notification
I've
for
had
it.
the exact same thing happen to me. It's
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of organization, like I said, we've got our list. Before Christmas, we made big lists.
Yeah.
And then I just... Every week you go through the list. And you send out to this person and this person. It's a terrible thing.
It's your own CRM, customer relations manager.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's actually a weird thing to do, especially if you're an artist. Like if you're a promo person, that stuff.
Yeah, it just comes
basic,
natural, right? And it starts flowing. You're like, and people expect it, but
But when you're like the guy who sits in the studio and
you feel like you don't want to be a bother to people,
I
right?
hate that.
But you know what?
I hate that idea.
Second worst answer you can get is no, right? Second best answer rather is no.
Exactly.
Better to know and move on.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Of course. It's just It is. It's a weird thing for people who don't do that sort of thing. You feel sorry for like telemarketers, man. Everybody gets mad about telemarketers. When they call, I'm like, man, I'm so happy I am not you.
I hope you don't say that, because that's a rough comment. No. I'm happy I'm not you.
But like, imagine that job though.
Yeah.
Like you sit in a cubicle and you got to cold call people.
Hey, maybe they love it.
I hope.
Maybe it's a rush.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
Yeah. I hope
they
so
go home
too.
every day and they're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. I did one summer as a door-to-door gas marketing. So not even cold calling, cold knocking.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was when I was 18, it was the perfect job to really like open you up and make you not antisocial, but just make you outgoing, because you have to be, right? Your paycheck depends on it. So I just remember the first door I knocked on, I'm just sweating bullets, like so nervous. You're not only like, it's not like you're striking up a conversation with someone on the street, you're going into their home, you're bothering them potentially at dinner time, right?
Yeah.
And they open up and like that look you get is so unmistakable, like what the fuck do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, what? What I'm really here for is
Oh, that would be hard.
So I highly recommend that for anyone between the ages of 16 and 18 to get you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I learned that early. Yeah.
Guys, is there anything you want to mention that we haven't talked about already? You gave us the website, gave us Ticks on the Block, talked about the show on the 28th, right?
28th,
okay. I mean,
those are the big ones.
Guys can hear your stuff online,
Absolutely.
and you're on Spotify and Apple Music, right?
All the above.
What are all the social medias to get you on?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
All full tongue?
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Like if you Google it, everything will come up.
Okay.
That's what I usually say.
We hope that some people, listeners, will check out the website or the social media stuff. Maybe get hooked. Or tell their friends. Who knows? So
perfect.
Get some people out there. That'll be great.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in, and I look forward to kind of tracking your progress over the next year or so, and then having you guys back when you're uber famous, and I can call in the favor.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Perfect. Luke, Jeff, thanks for coming in, guys.
Yeah.
As always, guys, thank you so much for listening. Your time and attention is incredibly valued and appreciated, and I really, really am enjoying the feedback you guys are giving me. It's really helping me pump these things out. We'll see you next week.